The neural interface crown sat heavy on Sarah Chen's head as she stared at the wall of her containment cell aboard the Hegemony flagship Dominion's Edge. For 3 months, the alien captors had subjected her to their enlightenment protocols, sophisticated, brainwashing techniques that had broken countless species across the galaxy. They called it integration. She called it slavery. What the Kethvar didn't understand was that humans had been perfecting the art of resistance for millennia. Subject 47 Alpha shows continued anomalous readings, reported technician Velnash to his superior, Overseer Threndall. The insectoid alien's mandibles clicked nervously as he reviewed the data streams. The neural pathways refused to conform to standard integration patterns. Threndall's 4 eyes narrowed as he examined the holographic display of Sarah's brain activity. Where other species showed the familiar blue-green patterns of successful indoctrination, the human's neural map blazed with chaotic reds and golds, patterns they'd never encountered before. "Increase the intensity," Threndall ordered. "This primitive species cannot possess any resistance we haven't already overcome." But Sarah wasn't just resisting. She was learning. Each session in the neural crown gave her deeper access to the Kethvar communication networks. What her captors interpreted as stubborn human defiance was actually something far more dangerous: adaptation. While they pumped their propaganda into her mind, she was reverse engineering their technology, mapping their command structures, and identifying the quantum frequencies their leaders used for encrypted communications. Humans, it turned out, were not just resistant to mental conditioning. They were natural hackers of consciousness itself. "The session is complete," announced the medical drone as it lifted the crown from Sarah's head. She slumped forward, playing the part of a broken prisoner while her mind raced with newfound knowledge. She had identified 17 key military commanders, 12 political leaders, and most importantly, the location of High Dominus Kreshtal, the architect of the Kethvar's galactic conquest. That night, as the ship entered its sleep cycle, Sarah put her plan into motion. The Kethvar had made a fatal assumption: that human neural architecture was similar enough to their previous conquests to be controlled by the same methods. They didn't realize that humanity's chaotic, emotion-driven consciousness was fundamentally incompatible with their rigid, hive-minded approach to mental dominance. Where they sought to impose order, humans thrived in chaos. Sarah closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, following the quantum pathways she had memorized during her sessions. The neural crown had been designed to broadcast control signals, but Sarah had learned to reverse the flow. Instead of receiving commands, she began transmitting them. Her first target was Captain Zexmore, the ship's commanding officer. She found his consciousness easily, a structured military mind with predictable patterns. Sarah slipped into his thoughts like water through cracks, planting suggestions that felt like his own ideas. Within minutes, he was issuing orders to reduce security around the detention levels. Next came Navigator Pithel. Sarah convinced him that the ship's current course was inefficient, that they should instead head to the coordinates where the Kethvar High Command was meeting. Coordinates Sarah had extracted from the ship's databases during her neural sessions. One by one, she infiltrated the minds of the crew, weaving a web of influence that spread through the ship like a virus. But unlike the crude brainwashing the Kethvar used, Sarah's method was subtle, working with each individual's existing thoughts and desires rather than trying to overwrite them. The beauty of human manipulation was that it felt natural. By morning, the Dominion's edge had changed course for the Nexus station, where the highest echelons of Kethvar leadership were gathered. Sarah remained in her cell, apparently defeated, while her influence spread through the ship's command structure like wildfire. "Overseer!" Technician Velnash approached Threndal nervously. "I'm detecting unusual quantum fluctuations in the command deck's neural networks." Threndal was about to respond when Sarah's consciousness touched his mind. The Overseer's 4 eyes went blank for a moment as foreign thoughts seamlessly integrated with his own. When he spoke again, his voice carried a subtle but unmistakable change in inflection. "Discontinue monitoring," he said calmly. "Focus your efforts on preparing the enhanced integration protocols. We'll need them when we reach Nexus Station." Hours later, as the flagship approached the massive space station that served as the Kethvar military headquarters, Sarah smiled in her cell. Through the eyes of the ship's compromised crew, she could see thousands of vessels gathered around. The station, the entire leadership of the hegemony's war machine, conveniently assembled in one location. The Kethvar had spent centuries perfecting techniques to control other species by exploiting their weaknesses, but they had never encountered a species whose greatest strength was the very chaos they sought to eliminate. Human consciousness wasn't a system to be hacked. It was a storm to be unleashed. As the Dominion's edge docked with Nexus Station, Sarah began extending her influence beyond the ship. Station commanders, political leaders, military strategists, one by one, they fell under her subtle control. What had started as an attempt to break one human prisoner was about to become the downfall of an interstellar empire. The Kethvar had made one crucial miscalculation. They assumed that because they could dominate other species, they were immune to domination themselves. They never considered that a species which had spent millennia resisting oppression might have developed the perfect tools to turn the tables. Sarah Chen, former xenoarchaeologist from Earth, now puppet master of the galaxy's most feared military force, finally allowed herself a genuine smile. The Kethvar had tried to make her one of them. Instead, she had made them all into extensions of herself. The age of human dominance was about to begin, and it would start with the enemy's own weapons turned against them. In trying to break humanity's spirit, the Kethvar had instead unleashed something far more dangerous than any fleet or weapon: human ingenuity paired with an absolute refusal to surrender. They had tried to indoctrinate her. Now she controlled their leaders, and through them she would liberate the galaxy.